Welcome everybody to this week's Dharma Talk, which will be from the Hekiganroku, or the Blue Cliff Record, Case 42, Koji's Beautiful Snowflakes, Ango's Introduction. He talks independently, acts independently, and he trudges through the mires for the sake of others. He talks with others, acts with others, and he stands alone, like silver mountains and an iron cliffs. And if you doubt and hesitate, you will be a ghost haunting a skull. If you stop to think, you will fall into hell. Don't you see that the sun is shining in the sky and feel the cold breeze blowing across the face of the earth? Was any of the great ones of ancient times like that? See the following. And before we get into the main case, let's talk about Ango's introduction, because it's quite eloquent, as it always is. It says he talks independently, acts independently, and trudges through the mire for the sake of the others. You know, and in this he's pointing to Koji. The vows that we make are very clear, especially as monks. At Blue Mountain Zendo, we really don't divide monks and priests from lay priests and lay teachers. In the Zendo here, they're all equal, although they have different responsibilities in different roles. So Hokoji here was a lay person, but Koji is an honorific title for a lay teacher. He was also very well respected as the abbots of these monasteries, including the abbot of the monastery we're going to be talking about in a little bit, with an abbot by the name of Yakusan. So it says in here that he talks independently, acts independently, and trudges through the mire for the sake of the others. So when we take these vows, these great vows, and when we take the vows of ordination, tokudo, it makes it very clear that there really is no choice, that we are vowing to be of service to other sentient beings that are in need. There's a koan in the Mumonkan about, why do we put the robe on when the bell rings? And this kind of points to this same thing. Why do I offer a Dharma talk, Even though on Facebook and on YouTube, to some extent, if something isn't brief, especially on Facebook, we were talking about this last night at Tea and Sweets during fellowships after Zazenkai, and we all kind of had a chuckle because if something on Facebook is more than 2 to 3 sentences and doesn't, have a picture, people will just scroll right past it. There's some wonderful Dharma talks for some wonderful teachers that are on Facebook, and I see them posted and they'll have 1 like, sometimes maybe 6 likes. And I always have to question myself. I'm like, well, these teachers are walking through the mire, for students, but yet, nobody's acknowledging it. Not that Zen teachers look for this acknowledgement in order to do this, but nobody's watching these, because really they aren't. That's the reason why they're not liking them. Most of the time they're just scrolling right past them, on your phone. You're just doing the thumbs up thing, over and over and over till something immediate, that immediately gratifies, some picture with a 1-line quote or something, and then maybe you'll read it. But everything else, you're doing the thumbs up to. But a lot of these things are beautiful. A lot of these teachers are offering their spleen and liver. I mean, they're really exposing themselves and walking through the mire for others. And that's why we do this. It's not for our own benefit, but it's for the benefit of others. It would be much easier for me right now to be doing something else or to be focusing on something else, but this is what I do, and these are the vows that I took, and one of them is not to be stingy with the Dharma assets, and the Dharma assets are the teachings, and in Zen, there is no choice when somebody's in need, or when something can be taught efficiently and in a direct way. There's a responsibility to manifest the activity of Zen, the activity of the Dharma. And this is what Koji, as well as the other monk in this, do quite eloquently. So it goes on to say, it says, he talks with others, acts with others, he stands alone, like a silver mountain and iron cliffs. So even though he's interacting with these other monks and walking with them and, you know, probably enjoying their company on the way to the gate, he still is hidden. He's not opening up, he's not accessible, he's not easy to see into, he's not easy to grab, right? And whenever I think of this, I think as a young kid, we used to go fishing with my father, and we used to catch eels and unagi, right, for the sushi lovers. And a live eel is almost an impossibility to hold on to, because the head is actually narrower than the tail. So you think, well, I'll grab it just right behind the head, but they turn into a knot in your hand, and they just fall out of your hand. You grab them by the tail, they do the same thing. They fall out of your hand. You grab them in the middle, they fall out of your... There's really no way to hold on to this eel. So in this way, you know, Hokoji's the same way. You know, he's like this mountain and iron cliffs, you know, where you just can't quite get a hold on him. You know, he's just independent, you know, and doesn't let others kind of see into him very, very easily. So he stands alone like silver mountains and iron cliffs, kind of hard to fathom, hard to climb. It says if you doubt or hesitate, you'll be like a ghost haunting the skull, right? So if you doubt or you miss the activity, then you're kind of looking at something that once was but is not anymore, right? So kind of a ghost haunting something that once was, you know, but is no longer. So we could say that we've missed it, and that we're just a ghost haunting the skull. If you stop to think, you'll fall into hell, right? This happens all the time. No matter you know, how far along you are in your koan practice or your practice with your teacher. Usually it happens when the teacher poses the koan or a question that you haven't thought about before, or you didn't look at from that perspective. So it kind of catches you off guard, and you fall silent, and your eyes go down to the floor. Now, when I see this in Dharma interview, I wait like maybe 20 seconds, and then I say, should I ring the bell? You know, and usually it's, you know, I just ask and give one more chance, and then I'll just ring the bell. You know, it just kind of is, okay, we didn't think about that one, I'll go and look at that a little bit more, and hopefully that's what they do. You know, and I still do it, definitely. You know, if I didn't look at something in the right way, most of the time it's like, well, how would you say it? Because we know in a koan, you know, what's being said, and we can even have insight or have the answer for the koan. But then when we're asked to put it in our own words, a lot of times we'll balk. But that really is the test if we know something thoroughly or not. Can you put it in your own words? Can you relate it to your own experience in your life? Which is very important, and really which is the basis of Zen. It is our own subjective experience of life itself, and exploring those experiences. So it goes on to say, don't you see the bright sun shining in the sky and feel the cold breeze across the face of the earth? Wow, you know, I was out just a little bit earlier before I came back, and there's snow all over the temple grounds, and it's still about 20 degrees here in Pennsylvania, and the wind is blowing, And it really makes you become present. It really brings you into the present moment, feeling that cold, cold wind sweep against your face. And you have no other option but to be cold, to be present with being cold. You know, and in this case, they're out probably in a snowstorm, and it probably is cold out. And Anga's pointing to, you know, don't you know the bright sun shining in the sky, and feel the cold breeze blowing across the face of the earth? You know, are you here? Where are you? Are you present? Are you in the moment? You know, are you hearing what I'm saying? Or are you somewhere else? Are you in the past? Are you reminiscing? Are you lamenting about something? You know. It says, was any of the great ones of ancient times like this? See the following. Right? So this is kind of Engo's setup to the actual koan. And this is the actual koan, or the main subject. So Koji again, a layman, was leaving Yakusan. Yakusan lit 10 Zenkaku, or Zen students, escort him to the temple gate to bid him farewell. So that's pretty much a sign of respect, again. At Daigosatsu, when there would be a Japanese teacher or students that would come to visit, when they would leave, we would all stand out on the stairs, or right before the stairs in the main entrance, and see them off as they left, as a sign of respect and gratitude for coming. So something very common within Zen monasteries and Zen etiquette. And Koji pointed to the falling snowflakes and said, "Beautiful snowflakes one by one, but they fall nowhere else." Then one of the Zenkaku named Zen Zenkaku said, "Then where do they fall? You know, if they fall nowhere else, where do they fall?" And then Koji gave him a slap. And Zen said, "Koji, you don't need to be so abrupt." And then Koji said, "If you were like that and call yourself a Zenkaku, Emma will never let you go." Zen said, "Well, what about yourself?" Koji gave him another slap and said, "You look, but you are a blind man. You speak, but you are like a deaf mute." And then Secho adds this comment, "Why didn't you hit him with a snowball in place of your first question?" So let's look at the koan line by line, right? So we already talked about, you know, the 10 Zenkaku seeing Hokoji out, right? And there's snow falling, probably beautiful, you know, large snowflakes are falling to the ground, and Hokoji just points and says, "Beautiful snowflakes, they fall nowhere else," you know. It's interesting how we can project ourselves back in time, and sometimes lament, and sometimes just ponder the things that once were but have changed. Sometimes I think, like, well, how did I get here? You know, I remember the elementary school. I remember playing in the elementary school, you know, gym, and my elementary school friends, and I remember my best friend Mike McCaslin in high school, and remember riding my BMX bike and skateboarding and all those things like they were just yesterday, you know. But no longer, you know. Now I'm 55, and I'm reminded quite often, there's one other Zen student that's probably about 20 years older than I here that reminds me that I'm a young pup. But I remember at like 45 or 35, 55 was like when somebody would die or pass away at 55, it'd be like, well, they had a pretty good run, you know, at 55. Now at 55, I'm like, well, you know, 75, 80, yeah, they had a pretty good, you know, pretty good run, you know. They had a full life, you know. But from what I hear at like 70 to 75 or so, you know, A little bit more acceptance, but you still don't quite see it as old, as like 85 to 95. So it's always kind of a moving target of what is old, and what is not. But things always change, right? And that is one of the beauties of this world and this existence, is that things arise in it and then they disappear. Everything in this phenomenal world is nothing more than a manifestation of the Dharmakaya. It's a manifestation of Nirmanakaya, of a very temporary form that comes into being out of emptiness and then, falls so beautifully and then may lay on the ground for a short period of time, but yet as it warms up, it melts and then it falls away into the whole. And we very much are like this as well. One of the most interesting things is the things that we value the most are the things that are most temporary in life. Flowers, for instance. Flowers have been something that have been used in religious ritual for a very long time. And I always wondered why exactly is that. I mean, they are beautiful and they smell beautiful, but why flowers? And the one day thinking about it, I thought, well, flowers are very temporary. They come up from kind of nothing, just a very simple seed buried in the ground, and they turn into this beautiful, vibrant snowflake. And they come into being for a very short time, and then they wither and die and fall back down to the earth and are reabsorbed. So the things that are most temporary in life are the things that we hold most valuable. And our lives, we're no different than these flowers. We are born, just like a flower. We become a beautiful, flower that is not perfectly like any other flower, and we go through life and we bloom, and as we get older, our petals begin to fall off, and then we slowly wither, and then we fall back into the earth, just like, these snowflakes that Koji is pointing to that are falling down. What beautiful snowflakes. When we think about those within our lives, too, that have come into our lives, like a beautiful snowflake falling, and who have passed away. I think there's probably about 4 or 5 Sangha members over the past 20 years that have passed away. But they're still very much alive within the Sangha. We always talk about them, especially a few, one of them being Kozan, who passed away, I guess, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 years ago now. But he still is very much a part of us, but he was very unique and very funny, and was such a big part of the Sangha, and it's very, very easy to miss him, as it is easy to miss the others as well. But yet this is the true beauty of life, is it's not forever. And we may think that we want to live forever. We may think that we want to be eternal. And some of the sci-fi movies and the horror movies, they have these creatures that live forever. But the interesting thing is, art reflects the human condition, and movies are art. And within the movies, what's most apparent to me is that even though these, entities are immortal, at some point in time they seek oblivion. They seek to die, almost as though they miss the essential, existence of emptiness or non-existent, however you look at it, but miss the totality and the immersion of one's essential nature. So to fall back into the whole, if you will, And they always seem to find a way in order to kill themselves and end their lives. And it's not too far-fetched, because if we looked at people that had a rich life, that are older, that are, you know, in their 80s or 90s, or maybe we're lucky and we can live over 100. When you talk to them, they too say, you know, I'm tired. I've lived a good life. You know, I've had a family and grandkids and great-grandkids, and, you know, I'm tired and I'm ready now. You know, so there's a part of us that recognizes our immortality within our essential nature. You know, and that it's a very natural thing to arise and then to fall back into the whole. There's a part of us that finds comfort in this and almost yearns for it. But yet there's also a part of the ego who wants to live forever, who thinks he wants to live forever. You know, so a lot of times we can get caught on the other side of lamenting and trying to hold on to the past, right? Being caught by the things that have been but no longer are. People and even animals. We had a cat by the name of Blue. And Blue was blue. He was a Russian blue cat. Pretty original, right? And he was an alley cat, actually a kitten when we first saw him. He would eat the bread from the bird feeder that we'd have out for the birds in the temple grounds. And we tried to catch him for a long time, and we just couldn't. He was just too smart. One day the front door was left open to the temple, and the front door led to a hallway, the hallway through the zendo, and the zendo to the kitchen. And one day this blue kitten came walking you know, through the zendo, down into the kitchen, jumped up on the kitchen table chair, and laid there. And there he stayed for 13 years. And he passed away, I guess, about 2 years ago. It was right when I came home from my last surgery, and it was very heartbreaking. And I'm not saying at all that mourning those that have passed that we love, you know, whether they're human beings or different kinds of sentient beings. You know, this is natural and good, and a process, cathartic process of letting go, you know, remembering these people. But yet getting caught by it and becoming entangled by the past can really pull us from seeing the wonderful, beautiful snowflakes that still are falling all around us. You know, where are you? Can you feel the cold breeze across your face? Can you see the beautiful snowflakes around you now that are falling, that are right here, moment to moment? You know, are you a ghost haunting a skull? Are you somewhere else in the past? Right? So Koji is kind of lamenting. He's kind of pondering, as we do, which is quite natural, the impermanence, or the what we call the law of anicca, impermanence. All things change. All things arise and all things fall. Nothing lasts forever, nor should it. But yet, from an essential perspective, right, there is no birth, there is no death. There is no beginning, there is no end. Right? So, he says this, and this young monk, short monk, named Zenkaku says, well, then where do they fall? If they don't fall anywhere else, you know, well, where do they fall then? You know, probably trying to be a little bit of a trickster, who knows, or maybe just, you know, trying to peek into Hokoji to see if you can get Hokoji's clamshell to open a little bit up to see into him, because remember, he's like silver mountains and iron cliffs, right? So let me see if I can get Hokoji to open up a little bit and show us his liver and spleen, you know. So he offers this. Well, then where do they fall? And Koji just slaps him right in the face. Right? And we may think, oh my God, it's not something I think that I would ever do to a student, I don't know. I have heard of some of my Dharma brothers and senior Dharma teachers in the past that have done things like this, strikes and punches, but we don't do it here. But nonetheless, in this situation, Hokoji offers exactly what was needed. Hokoji's activity is perfect, right? And it can be missed very, very quickly, but if we pay attention, we can see his activity. We can experience his activity, It's like a flash of lightning, so quick, so perfect, so precise, slap! Where else does it fall? What do we think he's pointing to? What do we think he's saying by that slap? Is he mad? I don't think so, not at all. But is he trudging through the mire? Absolutely. Absolutely. He could have just ignored Zen Zenkaku's comment, but he doesn't. Because he is loving and compassionate and grandmotherly and cares that this is an opportunity to teach, to offer something of quality to this young Zenkaku that he's interacting with, right? So he slaps him, right? We think, oh my goodness, he slaps him. But, what happens with this? What happens in Zen when somebody is slapped, somebody is hit, or we give a quats or some shout like that? What happens, when we do that? Or when we're on the receiving end of that, So this is what we have to ponder with this. What would it feel like to be slapped in a situation like that? When we ask kind of a loaded question, or we're trying to pry where we shouldn't be prying. What happens when we get a reaction that we're not expecting? That is totally out of the wheelhouse that we think is going to occur. What happens to us, right? What happens to us? What happens to us when we feel that cool breeze blowing across our face, in that bitter 20-degree cold and snow? What does it do to us? Where does it bring us, right? And this is what Hokoji is trying to do to Zenkaku. He's being very grandmotherly, and he's trudging through the mire for Zenkaku. But Zenkaku says, Koji, you shouldn't be so abrupt. Like, what? You didn't have to hit me. Why didn't you just explain it? Why didn't you just give me a turning word? Why'd you have to hit me? So he kind of doesn't get it. Or maybe he doesn't get it, and maybe it's a chuckle between the two, You didn't have to hit me, Maybe he realizes that he did have to be hit. This is something we need to look in with this koan, Where is Zenkaku coming from, and where is Hokoji coming from? But remember, in Engo's introduction, it says, was any of the great ones of ancient times like this? See the following. So he's talking about Hokoji, not Zenkaku, right? So this kind of puts it in perspective, right? And then Koji says, if you are like that and call yourself a Zenkaku, Emma will never let you go. So Emma is Oyama, or the devil, right? So if you act like that, if you are so, surprised and so offended because, you were slapped, and didn't take the time to become present, then the devil will never let you go, because you're just caught in the external world, You don't see the activity that is all around you. You don't see the snow beauty of the snowflakes falling around you. You've missed it, right? You've missed it. So Zenkaku says, well, what about yourself? You know? Right? So what about yourself? You know? You're interacting here. You know? You're saying stuff. What about yourself? You know, the devil ever going to let you go? So he's kind of missing it again. And what does Koji do again? He slaps him right again. He slaps him and he says, you look, but you are a blind man. You speak, but you are like a deaf mute. Right? So, missed it. Didn't see it. You know, is somewhere else, is caught in the pain of the slap or caught in the offense of being slapped. Just doesn't miss it. M is never going to let you go, you know, until you get over this, you know, until you drop that ego, until you drop that I, you know, until you come to, admire and be present with these beautiful snowflakes. You will never see it. You will never get it. Right? But Setcho in the end, right, well, it goes on to say here, you're like a blind man, you speak, you are like a, you hear, but you were like a deaf mute. So this in Christianity is also spoke about too in a lot of different religious traditions. You know, they say you have eyes, but you cannot see, you have ears, but you cannot hear. Meaning, you know, hearing with your eyes, you know, and seeing with your ears, experiencing things in a totally different way. You know, versus the normal way that we perceive things. And it sounds a little confusing, like how can you hear with your eyes, but yet you very much can. And you can see with your ears. You very much can. It's just a different way of experiencing things, right? So Setcho says here, which kind of throws this thing upside down, he says about Zen Zenkaku, he says, why didn't you hit him with a snowball in place of the first question, right? So, so why didn't you hit him with a snowball in first of the first question? So Zenkaku's question, you know, then where do they fall, you know? Why didn't you hit him? You know, excuse me. No, this was beautiful snowflakes. One by one, they follow nowhere else. Excuse me. So Setcho is saying, you know, well, why didn't you just throw a snowball at him? You know, just throw a snowball at him. And he says it again in his verse too. You know, so. This is Hokoji. He's very respected. Yakusan has 10 Zenkakus walking him to the Dharma gate. So are we to take this literally, that we are to pick up a snowball and whack Hokoji in the back of the head with a snowball? You know, this very respected and honored Zen teacher? Is this what's being said? Or, you know, maybe just throw a little snowball, soft snowball at him, you know, maybe that's kind of in the middle, you know, or is a snowball symbolic of something else? Maybe we should be doing something else, giving a turning word or doing something, you know. But he makes it very clear in his verse again, right? So he makes it very clear, and sometimes things are exactly as they are. You know, as Freud said, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. He says, hit him with a snowball, hit him with a snowball, Setcho says. You know, he says, even the best will fail to reply. Neither heaven nor earth knows what to do. Ears and eyes are blocked with snow. Transient serenity and purity, even the blue-eyed old monk can't explain. So, remember as a kid playing in the snow and throwing snowballs, and you know, if you ever remember being hit by a snowball, it's kind of like something very abrupt. You know, you get hit and you're not expecting it, you know, in the snowball fight, and you know, then you have to kind of scurry and recollect yourself and get another snowball ready. You know, so what is the experience of being hit by a snowball? Can you remember? You know, I don't know. Maybe in the West where you don't have snow, maybe a water balloon or something of that sense. You know, but what is it to kind of be hit with something that we're not expecting? You know, what does it do to us? You know, what does a slap do to us? What does a snowball do to us? You know, what does it mean, you know, throw a snowball at him? What is Secho getting at? And why is he so adamant that we should be throwing snowballs at this exalted teacher, Koji? But Secho's adamant about it. Hit him with a snowball, hit him with a snowball. So don't forget that when you're working on this koan, right? Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. So even the best will fail to reply, right? So even with that Zen shout, "Kwatz!" or with that snowball or with that slap that Hokoji gives, you know, how do we reply? You know, how do you reply? You know, do we hit them back? Well, you know, it's Zen is not martial arts, so it's not a initiate of Mortal Kombat. So how do we respond to these things? And the physicality of something is different for us, right? So we can, you know, we can deal with being yelled at, we can deal with being shouted at many times or corrected, even though in the beginning that's a very tough thing for people to be corrected. They're not used to it, you know, and a lot of times they become very angry and they take it personally, like, oh, I'm being picked on, and, you know, every little thing is being, you know, pointed out, you know. But when it comes to physicality of being hit or struck, if anybody's ever been hit or struck or hit with a snowball or a water balloon or anything, or stepped on a rake and got the handle of the rake in the face, we know that it really stops us in our tracks. And it brings us to the present moment very quickly, just like that cold breeze of 20 degrees of me, you know, getting out of the car and walking in the house. That really brings you right to the present moment, brings you right here, you know, where you can see these wonderful, beautiful snowflakes that are falling all around you, right? If you know, and you're open enough to these experiences, but if you take them as an assault on you personally, or the ego sees it as an affront or a violation or a threat, then we've kind of missed the spirit in which this koan is pointing to. These slaps were far from punishment. They were trudging through the mire. I'm sure that there was no pleasure that Hokoji gave in slapping Zenzenkaku, other than, you know, kind of maybe a little jovial and playfulness to it. There was no malintent at all in this. But that act of getting slapped or struck, or even, like I said, shouted at, but getting your physical being violated, really does bring you to the present moment, because the mind and the ego thinks, you know, a danger, you know, the lion is ready to pounce on you, you know, you have to get in fight or flight mode, you know, so it brings you really present, the adrenaline kicks in and you're really, really present, right? So think about getting slapped by Hokoji, you know, and being like, you know, why do you have to be so rough, you know? So it goes on to say, even the best will fail to reply. I mean, how do you reply to a handle, you know, of a rake in your face? How do you reply to a snowball that hits you in the side of the head when you're not expecting it, you know? How do you reply to getting slapped by somebody when you're not expecting it? Or, you know, how do you reply if anybody was ever in a car accident and wasn't expecting it? How do you react to, you know, a car hitting you? You're just, all of a sudden, you're just immediately there. Like everything is clear. You know, every sound is vibrant. Every sight is like clear, like a hawk vision. You know, you really come to the present really quickly and immediately, right? So this gives us some insight into what's going on here, and it says, neither heaven and earth know what to do, right? And what do you do? It's saying here, you know, nobody knows what to do nowhere. You know, getting hit by the snowball. What do you do? Nobody knows, you know. What will you do, you know? Eyes and ears are blocked with snow, right? Transient serenity of purity. So now there is like a stillness that has occurred, you know. Eyes and ears are blocked with snow. You know, now there's just beautiful snowflakes, you know, falling from the sky, and the cool breeze across the earth. Nothing more, nothing less. And then it closes, even the blue-eyed old monk can't explain, Bodhidharma can't even explain. Nobody can explain it. This is the wonderful activity that is Zen practice. You know, and it is based on your experience and nothing other. So I'll leave you with this. Don't forget, Sechos, throw a snowball. Throw a snowball.